we interrupt your regularly scheduled crosstalk to bring you a new brand of talk radio. Warning. The following program may be inappropriate for ideologues at either end of the political spectrum.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Broadcasting from the cradle of liberty, this is the Michael Smerconish program.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. There are somewhere between 50 and 60 congressional races in the nation that are regarded as seats that are in play, 435 members of the House, but when you narrow it down, probably 50 to 60 that are truly in play. One of them certainly New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District. And when I say in play, I mean targeted by both Republicans and Democrats on a national level as something they'd like to have and something they think they can have. It's a district that includes all or part of Burlington and Ocean counties as well as Cherry Hill Township. By way of one example, the Cook Political Report has listed the race among the most competitive in the country. It has a Republican tradition in terms of its congressional representation, but that ended in the last cycle. The incumbent is Democrat John Adler. His challenger is Republican Jon Runyon. Brief introduction for each of these men because both of them join me now in studio. Congressman John Adler has represented New Jersey's 3rd Congressional District since January of 2009 when he became the first Democrat in decades to win election there. Before his election to Congress, Mr. Adler served in New Jersey's state Senate for 17 years. In 1991, he became the only candidate to beat a Republican incumbent in either house of the New Jersey legislature. He's a graduate of Harvard University and the Harvard Law School. Jon Runyon is a former professional football player who experienced his first political victory last month, winning the Republican nomination for the House of Representatives in the 3rd District. Runyon played 14 seasons in the NFL, including 9 with the Philadelphia Eagles, started 213 consecutive games from 1997 to 2008, was selected to the Pro Bowl as an offensive tackle in 2002. Mr. Runyon graduated from the University of Michigan. Thanks to both of you for being here. Am I right that it's the first time that you've shared a stage, so to speak?
Of talking about issues. We've shared many stages in community service throughout the years, though. Well,
I'm thrilled to have you both, and I also appreciate how you kind of left the ground rules to me, and what I said we would do is no formal opening statements and no closing statements, and I'm not going to run a clock. I have a list of issues in front of me that I've shared with neither of you, and I would just like to run through them, alternate back and forth in terms of who gets the first word and hopefully cover a lot of ground and give voters not only in New Jersey's 3rd but also across the country an insight into one race that is considered to be a bellwether for what's going on in the country. So I'll start with Congressman Adler. Michael Steele said last week that the one thing you don't do is engage in a land war in Afghanistan because everyone who has tried over 1,000 years of history has failed. And there are reasons for that. There are other ways to engage in Afghanistan without committing more troops. When you heard what Michael Steele had said, that in particular, do you agree?
Michael, we are engaged in a war against terror all around the world. We've had many Americans suffer grievous loss. Many families have seen their loved ones die in New York City, outside the Pentagon. I had a friend die in the Lockerbie, Scotland bombing some 25 years ago. So I think we should all be conscious of the fact we are in a war against terror. Afghanistan is a battleground. That is ground zero. And we have to win that. We have to continue to dismantle the al-Qaeda mechanism for terror and disrupt the Taliban in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. I've been there. I've seen the troops on the ground. I think the comments Mr. Steele made were despicable. They were political rather than uniting this country patriotically to try to fight a common enemy, which is the Taliban and al-Qaeda.
Congressman, yesterday when I aired this out with my audience, I was surprised, maybe I should not have been, that many, and I was among them, took the view that maybe there's some truth in what he said when he really, if you take away what limited polish there is to that statement, he seems to be questioning the winnability of the war in Afghanistan. Does he have a point when he wonders, if that's what he's wondering, whether we can win that thing?
Well, it's not something you gauge the way we've traditionally gauged winning wars, World War II, the Korean War, previous wars. This has been an ongoing struggle. We are under siege from terrorists around the world. So every year that goes by where America is not attacked, we're winning that war. The fact we've got to go literally halfway around the world to to a medieval country, to Afghanistan, to protect America is a sad reality. We have to continue to invest troops. We have to continue to invest resources to keep America safe and free. It's a grievous price to bear, but the cost of terrorist acts on our homeland is a far higher price to pay. So, unfortunately, he's taking a political position. I understand many people have war fatigue, think we can sort of stop and retrench and come back within our shores here in America. But the reality is we've got to keep America safe and free by being vigilant around the world.
John Runyon, what did you make of Michael Steele's comments and the controversy about them?
Well, I believe it is something where you have to get the politics out of it. The generals are there. They're experienced in winning wars. General Petraeus, I have the utmost confidence in, he has the ability to do it. Yeah, history has proven otherwise. But we are engaged in a war on terror that we have to win. And we can't keep putting restrictions, whether they're deadlines, dates we have to withdraw, restricting troops. We have to give the military what they need to win this war and keep the politics out of it, because ultimately the people that are on the ground know what we need and know what we need to do to win.
I noticed that both of you referred to this as the war on terror or the war against terror. Is that, John Runyon, when you're out on the stump and talking about the enemies of America, is that how you verbalize it, war on terror? This whole semantic debate of whether it should be a war against radical Islam, whether it's a war against terror, people are struggling with what to call it. What do you call it?
I think it's a war on terror. I think, what happened on 9/11, obviously, was the start of this whole thing, and we really have to eliminate it because it affects not only us, it affects our allies all over the world.
Congressman Adler, how do you regard it, the way in which you said a moment ago, war against terror?
Well, we are under attack. There are terrorists that have attacked our country several times. We have to be mindful of the fact that we have to win the war there so they don't attack us here. I had a chance to speak with General Petraeus last Tuesday, a week ago yesterday, talked about the importance of the ground war and nation building so we can, over time, transition to an Afghan National Army, an Afghan state police, and hopefully a corruption-free Karzai government. That's a big wish, but I think General Petraeus is exactly the right man to do the job and to lead troops who have bravely volunteered to serve us overseas. We have to continue to fight there so we don't get attacked here.
John Runyon, speaking of General Petraeus, last week, General McChrystal either resigned or was fired based, I guess, on your interpretation. Was that the right outcome for his comments and those of his colleagues as they were published in Rolling Stone? When you heard what he and others had said that were published in Rolling Stone, did you think this guy has to go?
Well, I think when you look at it, and myself being a team player my whole life and being part of a team, there is a chain of command. And President Obama is commander-in-chief. And to talk in a bad light about your superiors, to even hint about it, there needs to be something done. And I think the right decision was made, because you can't have the the battling or the back talking in that type of arena when there's lives on the line day in and day out. Everybody needs to be on the same page, trying to obtain the same goal.
You agree with that, John Adler?
Well, I think the president faced a dilemma. He didn't want to endanger the troops on the ground in Afghanistan. Fortunately, he had a better person to fill the role of our commander on the ground in Afghanistan. So we brought in General Petraeus, who had actually successfully employed a counterinsurgency strategy in Iraq to do the same sort of thing in Afghanistan. So in this case, it was exactly the right thing, both to maintain the discipline that John's correctly talked about, but also to make sure we fulfill the mission there on the ground. Speaking
of the military, how do you feel about ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
That's an easy call. If there's people willing to sign up to serve our country and put on uniform and hold a weapon and stand a post in times of war, I want those people out there protecting America. I don't care if they're gay or straight. They're Americans. God bless them for serving our country.
John Runyon, how do you feel about ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
I personally, I don't have a problem with it, but ultimately knowing that there are issues that develop themselves on the ground in war. There's personality conflicts, and there are people that have issues with it. The military are the ones that are going to make the decision whether it needs to be enforced or not. Again, I think it's another example of politics being involved in something that really doesn't need to. Ultimately, you're there to win a war, and if a general says he agrees with it or disagrees it, that's where I'm going to align with that.
In other words, you lead